3 months and some weeks after they were installed into their offices. Today to talk to us, we have Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. He is a politician. He's not a new man. Good evening, Doctor, and thank you for being there.
Oh, thank you. It's very exciting to be with us here under the cap of politician.
Thank
I
you,
dropped so much social entrepreneur, doctor, and whatever. Let's talk politics today.
Actually, it's necessary. If you don't do politics, politics will do you.
No play politics. Politics will play you.
Thank you, Doctor, for being there. Doctor is being accompanied by Mr. Kan Gogomos. He's a legal mind. Good evening, sir. Thank you for being there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Venasius, for inviting me today, that we should start the week talking about politics.
Which is necessary, part and parcel of us.
It is our life, and we must move along with it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Let us go straight to part 1 of the program to take the yes or no answer session. We begin part 1 of the program. Mr. Khan, I begin with you. Dormant regional councils, a result of poor government planning in Cameroon?
Exactly what you have said.
Yes. Mr. Khan says, yes, it is. Doctor?
A beautiful yes.
Yes, from your part as well. Doctor, I remain with you. Is this a pointer to failure of decentralization in Cameroon?
Beautiful, yes.
Yes, doctor says yes. Mr. Khan?
Exactly.
Exactly. Mr. Khan says it is yes. Those are their views. Let us go to part 2 of the program and we'll get them talk to us. If you are just joining us, you're watching Viewpoint, and we are going live on our Facebook page. One of the modifications of the 1996 Constitution in Cameroon was the introduction of institutions such as regional councils and the Senate. With the regional councils, 24 years after this house was brought into existence, and 3 months after those pioneer councillors were installed into office, we are yet to hear them, to get them out in the field to solve the problem it was intended to. In 1996, we were talking about decentralization in Cameroon, and today we have not gotten them yet. So we're asking the question, is this, a result of poor government planning from 1996 to 2021? We don't yet have them. Is it poor planning? Mr. Kangogomos, you think that it is exactly poor government planning?
Thank you so much, Mr. Venasius. I want to remind us that decentralization is a French concept, yes, actually. And the government, in amending the Constitution of 1984 in 1996, was as a result of the political upheavals in Cameroon following the all Anglophone conferences of the early 90s, the rebirth of multipartism, and the other questions. If you can recall, there was always this program on the television, Where Are We? And it was questioning the place of the Anglophones in this country.
Yes.
Probably the concept of putting into place decentralization was in an attempt to respond or answer these questions that the Anglophones were asking. Fortunate or unfortunate, the 18th February 1996 Constitution, which gave birth to these institutions in the country, only gave the nation, the government that only gave them the possibility of implementing these 24 years after.
Mm-hmm.
For crying out loud, in English and in legal matters we say justice delayed is justice denied.
Actually,
if after 24 years decentralization is coming to the table, I want us to see that this length of time is already making us see a failure.
Mm-hmm.
This is a child-born crippled. And any child-born cripple will not be able to do anything good.
Mm-hmm.
get to look at the concept of decentralization as it is, the laws that govern them. When you look at a system of, these councillors themselves are stooges. Are you getting me? They are stooges. Why do I say so? The law cannot, first of all, make us to understand that these councillors are under the strict supervision of a central system, which is found in Yaoundé. The councillors do not have a program of activities. They are like those to accompany the government institutions to realize their various programs, the various ministries to realize their programs. And you come to tell us that it is a body that wants to help to realize or answer the questions that people have been asking. Look at it. Do you know that the councils do not have any power of their own to initiate a project and realize it? One day I overheard one of the councillors in the Northwest saying, we are going to speed up development and make the country develop overnight. I laughed. No councillors meeting holds without an approval from Yaoundé and the governor. Now,
the regional governor.
Yes, the regional governor. He is like the overlord. And the councillors cannot initiate a project and realize it. They cannot get up in the morning and say, we are sitting as the councillors of the Northwest and we want to talk of the construction of or the completion of the Bamenda Ring Road. They cannot. It is not in their powers to do that. They cannot initiate the building of a hospital in a local environment and make it a reality. They cannot. Do you know that the law denies that councillors from one region cannot communicate with councillors from in another region?
It's because they may, get information.
Do you know that the law says these councillors, if they must communicate, they have those per se, the Northwest wants to communicate with the West, they have to first of all get to the governor and write officially stating exactly what they want to discuss with the other region. And apart from that, the governor must call them to interview, let them say exactly what their intentions are, and if the governor finds them wanting, that communication does not take place. And you tell me it's in fact it's a poor government planning and it's actually leading to failure. I see nothing in them.
Mr. Khan, we'll come back to you so that we look at this issue. But then I want to take Doctor, one of the calls from the major national dialogue, which you participated on, was, that call to accelerate the process of decentralization. And the idea of putting in place regional councils was, that's part of, putting into action that concept of decentralization. Do you see it? Is it tying with what was intended?
No, the raison d'etre of the major national dialogue was not putting in place decentralization.
Yes, that was one of the calls.
Oh, no, it was not even one of the calls. Yes, because let's step back a little bit. The problem in this nation has been the Anglophone problem, which has been neglectful for a long time and is beginning to decay. All right, the wound is beginning to bring out pus and there are maggots in it and so on. So the question is, what do we do to correct this situation? And every delicate situation is solved with a dialogue. And therefore, a dialogue was put in place to try to see what medication can be brought or what solutions can be brought to solve this problem. And the problem of the Anglophones is the problem of the form of state.
Yes.
It is not anything else. It's the problem of the form of state. Now, when the major national dialogue was held, it was craftily done in such a way that the form of state was not addressed.
Correct.
All right, they dodged away from the form of state and then created some. There were 8 major themes of discussion, and then the little thing that came to look like a discussion on the form of state was decentralization as stated as it's supposed to be.
Yes.
It was not for debate. All right.
It was given.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like that. Let's talk about decentralization and see what we'll do to make it work and so on. Because, and then you will remember during the proceedings in the hall, you know, some man got up from somewhere and said, "Oh, there was a little clause about special status written for Anglophone hidden somewhere. Can we look at it? We hid it somewhere in there." You see that? You see the mindset? It was not meant to solve the problem, and therefore, let's agree that at the end of the day, they came up with something called decentralization. The question is, what is it?
That is it.
What is it? You know, and I was saying somewhere else that Francophones will be so excited about the current decentralization because a few people will get power and they can throw themselves around and so on. You know, you get some power and you go through the quartier and get an extra bottle of beer. That's it. But for Anglophones, the decentralization has got no meaning. It has no meaning. Because if we step back again, when Barrister Gogomo was saying, when we are talking about this decentralization in Cameroon, it's not because the Francophones wanted it or because they cared about it. They don't even know what it is and they didn't need it, because usually they have their SDOs who think for them and their DOs and everything, and it is like that. Nobody questions, okay? And if you want to make love to your wife, you go take permission from the DO, and if he gives you permission, you make a baby. That's how they are. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes. But they are dealing with a group of other people here who think differently, who don't have to ask permission for everything that you do.
Yes.
That's why when you were talking about asking permission to talk to some other, unfortunately, I'm sure the camera caught me. It's something that is unheard of. Yes. We're in the Northwest Province. We want to talk to people in the West Province.
No,
we have to go to somebody, write an application, take permission. We want to discuss how you make roads. Okay. Jesus Christ. And we want Cameroon to develop. It's called primitivity of the first order. Now, back. It makes me laugh. Oh my God. So here we are. The decentralization is created to try to address the Anglophone problem. It's not to address Francophone problems.
Yes.
So the Francophones and everybody, they don't really attach that much importance to it. Even they couldn't care. And the way the government had been functioning, the administrative apparatus, you know, the people who had the power, they have their power and they want it. So they're in no hurry to give it to you. So we've created two parallel systems: the decentralization, the regional council, whatever, and then we have the governor and his état-major and so on. Okay.
Yes.
If we step back again and look at it, there is no, watch my lips, there is no problem that has been left on the shelf for the regional council to come and solve. There's no problem that has been left on the shelf for the regional council to come and solve. But it doesn't mean that there are not problems. There are problems which have not been solved because of bad governance. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And the regional council has no capacity to change the bad governance. They're just equally as bad, because it's a system kind of thing. It's a system kind of thing. And then when you come to West Cameroon, so to speak, the regional councils that have been put there, they are kind of like very expectant, because they still have some nostalgia from the past, thinking we will get it and we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. But the bottom line is the system is still the same, and you don't have any power to do anything. And worst of all, they are not they are not elected by the people.
Very clearly.
Yeah, they are not elected by the people. They are elected by themselves. So they don't really represent the people.
Okay.
So they want to do something to show that they are relevant, but they are working in a machinery that doesn't care. So the bottom line is the Anglophone problem has not been properly addressed.
Yes.
And therefore, anything that came out of the major national dialogue, which in itself, in its grand totality, was a failure. Anything that trickles out of things is a failure. All right. Until we go back and have this. Probably I didn't tell you. Let me remind you and our listeners that there's going to be
a true major.
Barrister knows about it. There's going to be a true. Not major. If you say major national dialogue is wrong.
Okay.
It's true. There's going to be a true dialogue in this nation,
Yes.
whether it holds here or holds anywhere in the moon, there's another dialogue that is coming.
Yes,
which will
and
be
it's
true in a
quite
right
true.
sense.
Yes.
True.
Yes, it's true in its right sense.
Yes.
Because the Anglophone problem must be solved. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
And following on the heels of that true dialogue, following internationally laid principles
Norms,
like
yes.
cessation of violence, all that blah 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 blah, reconciliation, truth and reconciliation, whatever, there will be reconciliation and there will be unity in the nation at that time, because this dialogue will define one and only one thing. Do you know what it is?
Noted.
The form
of
of
government.
state.
Okay, we are talking about the form of state. Doctor, before we get to Mr. Gugomos, well, let's find out. We are talking about government planning. 24 years down the line, and government is still behaving as if they did not even understand anything about regional government, regional councillors. We listened to one of the bureau executive in the Southwest region, and he was, like angry, surprised that after 3 months, all what they could get from Yaoundé is computers installed in French language for them to work with in Boya. And the question we are asking is, the resources they put them up in their offices is not possible.
It was not meant to work.
Okay.
It was not meant to work, because when you want something to work, you put in place everything that would help it to work. If your primary objective is not to make it work, it will not work. And besides, anyway, when I saw those people in Boya gesticulating and so, it gave me a good laugh. Who told them that it was meant to work?
Okay.
I mean, and in terms of, we have a lot of problems in the country, and as I've said before, if you know this thing of when you have problems, you put them in order of importance.
Strata, yes.
Yes. This that is
The
the
scale of preference.
Scale of preference. That's
Yes.
right. Let's take the country as a whole, because the money has got to come from somewhere to go into that. Let's start from the north in Marawa, where there are no primary schools. You have seen primary schools and secondary schools. They're in they're in grass.
Yes.
The children sit in sand. No benches. Nothing is constructed. There's no water up there.
For 60 years.
Yes. Check all over the nation and see the problems that we have. Then, if the people in the northwest are even very angry, it's because there was no ring road. If there was a ring road and we could do our things, probably would not have been as angry as that. I mean, I'm looking at some specific things that ought to be done. You think that the government has money to give you to go and sit in an office and wear a tie like I am now? I'm a regional. Who cares about that? We already have a governor that we can worship.
Yes.
We have delegates that we can worship. SDOs that we can worship. And then you are bringing up some other one called regional
Councillors.
that we
Regional
should be
councillors.
worshiping. No, the worship time is over.
Okay, Doctor, Mr. Khan, when you listen to Doctor speaking here, he's raising the problem of money. And like we're indicating, since 3 months, these regional councillors, they have no budget to function with.
Mr. Venus, when you ask that question, I laugh. You know why?
No.
What do they want to do with money? That's the first question.
The idea they are telling us is to fast track development.
My brother, what project do they want to execute that they need money?
Yes.
These people are stooges. I have said it. They are stooges from the onset because they don't have a platform of functioning. Some of them, when they got the idea of regional councillors, they ran down historical memory lane to the days of the then West Cameroon that had its prime minister, his government, and then there was somebody like a supervisor. They thought that way to function just like the government administrators of those days. Fortunate or unfortunate for them, we have the governor at the helm. We have the senior divisional officer at the helm. If they do not approve their sitting, they will not sit. Even what to discuss, we don't know. If you don't have the project to construct a hospital, what are you sitting to do?
Okay.
What do you want money for?
Okay, Mr. Khan, let's come back to, we take question two because of time constraint. We are trying to find out from question 2, is this a pointer to, a failure of decentralization in Cameroon? Remember we said decentralization was an option the government of Cameroon chose. Instead of trying to talk about federalism, they opted to talk about decentralization and putting, decentralization, bringing administration closer to the people. Now we are talking about those regional councils that have not taken off since 100 days in office.
Sure.
And we are saying, is this a pointer that decentralization is failing in Cameroon? Which you think so?
Sir, let me remind you.
Yes.
When we look at international norms, any government, any body to work for people when it is put in office officially, its period of official presenting its work plan is 100 days.
Of course, which has rounded up.
And if they have rounded up their 100 days without having anything to show off,
They don't even have any.
there is no roadmap.
Yes.
That is a clear indication that it's a failure. This thing is a sham. This thing is a sham. Are you getting me?
Yes.
It is just boiling down to make us think that the government thought by putting up that option, it will calm down the English-speaking Cameroonians from asking for what they have been asking. Are you getting me? From the onset, it was never an intention of the Francophones in this country to even bring down administration to the people. And worst of all, like Dr. Riley said, who voted these people?
The councillors.
30%
Yes.
of them are voted, are appointed by the president. Are you getting me? For crying out
No,
loud.
30% of senators. Those should be senators.
Go back to the councillors.
Yes.
You realize that 30% are appointed.
Yes.
Now, these same councillors were voted by workers in the various councils. And if you look at it critically in Cameroon, 85% of the councils are ruled by the CPGM party.
Yes, perhaps even more than 85%.
That is the ruling party
Party.
in Cameroon.
Yes.
And Cameroon being the Cameroon that we know, whoever puts you in office becomes your boss. You worship that person, you work for that person, and you say yes, sir, to that person. These same people, the CBGM has its boss that we all know. And all those put there are to dance according to the tune of the boss. If the boss has not yet told them what to do, they have to wait until the boss tells them what to do. Even if that means to the end of their mandate, they will have to wait. So the people are not concerned.
Okay.
The population is not concerned.
Okay. We come back, Doctor. We are trying to say, we are asking, is this a failure, of decentralization in Cameroon? We are coming back to the question of, the form of state.
That's right.
Can this issue of form of state solve the dilemma Cameroon is picked into?
Yeah, Cameroon is going to have, we are going to have a dialogue.
You are speaking like a
A
prophet.
true and a genuine dialogue.
Yes.
And the key question on the table will be the
form of state.
Of state.
Yes.
And I want to borrow a few seconds to tell people something. With the Anglophone problem that started, some people pretend that the Anglophone problem is a teachers and lawyers problem.
Yes.
It's not true.
It isn't.
It's not. Some people pretend that the Anglophone problem is a language problem. It is not. It's a lie. The Anglophone problem is a collection of three problems happening at different intervals.
Yes.
Some people like the people who are so passionate about Southern Cameroons would tell you that it's a colonial problem. So that colonial problem laid a foundation. Okay. Then sometime around 1972, when the federal constitution was wiped away, the federal nature of the nation was wiped away.
The federal constitution was wiped away.
That was the beginning of the sowing of the real problem. And I was not even aware of it. It is President Pobia who educated me on it from when he was speaking to Mr. Mo Ibrahim. I don't know whether you were drinking or you also heard.
Of course, I heard.
Mr. Gogum, I'm sure you also heard.
For sure.
And he said that all this while, starting from 1972,
We have been
they have been trying to make the Anglophone
assimilate them.
and it did not work. Are you getting me? So that is the Anglophone problem. And then he said that this Anglophone should be left alone, which is what unfortunately he is saying it a few months after the major national dialogue had held,
yes,
where they had gone and instead tightened the Anglophones. If he had said it before, then the major national dialogue might have been a success.
Might have addressed issues.
So this decentralization was an issue of tightening again and then bottling and sealing. Are you getting one in the wrong direction? So now, when you have a dry bush with firewood and everything is dry, if you light a match, it goes whoop. So the teachers and the lawyers' issues was the match that lit the whole country. You understand? But it is not the problem. And therefore, when someone pretends that you asked us for 15 things and we gave you 19 solutions or 22 solutions, it's wrong. Are you getting what I'm saying? Because when you understand problems and understand how to solve problems, and you understand this principle called Pareto's rule, the 80-20 rule, you will realize that when you have something like the Anglophone problem, sit down and think of one issue. Try and understand the Anglophone problem. Then synthesize it and come up with one, not two, not three issues. That if I tackle this one issue, I would solve 80% of those problems. Are you getting what I'm saying? Now, if you were to think like that, then you say, okay, if we are going to have a dialogue, we will tackle, and that one issue is the form of state.
Yes.
And once you solve that problem of the form of state, you solve 80% of the Anglophone problems. Are you getting me? You see this other bag of things that you people are giving, the lawyers and teachers. Give them 1,000 of those things, you have not solved. Because you are dealing, you have taken a fraction. I told you about the 80-20, no? So let's shift it even to the 19-10. You instead of dealing with the 90%, you have taken 10%, and you are trying to make capital out of 10%. It will not work. Does it make sense?
Exactly, Doctor.
Good.
Time constraint. Before we are coming back. So, from what we are getting out here is we should scrape off the regional councils.
It's not scraping off. That's what has to happen. That's when let me tell you something. When the national dialogue comes, not national dialogue. I'm sorry, cancel that thing. It's not national dialogue. It's not major national dialogue.
It's dialogue.
The dialogue between Anglophones and the government. There might be some other dialogue between the government and Bamileke's government and Northerners, government and East. We don't care. But we are talking about, when we are talking about this dialogue, the most important dialogue in this nation is the dialogue between Anglophones and the what? And the government. Empoe, entre.
And what would they be discussing over?
When we come to that, yes, when we come to that dialogue, every other thing will be wiped off the slate. And I will begin afresh. So the national dialogue will take that and throw it in the dustbin. Or everything, and then bilingualism commission throw that thing in the dustbin.
Okay. But they are
Doctor. Yes, you are rounding off. Time constraint.
I want to think that the councils will naturally die by themselves because they have no role.
Okay.
Even if they didn't die, they will be killed.
They'll die by themselves.
Yes.
Are you getting me?
Yes.
And when they die by themselves, the true form of the state will come up.
Yeah.
And when it comes up, like Dr. Riley said, 80% of the problems would have been solved.
Yeah.
And when this 80% would have been solved, the other 20 will gradually come to pass.
Yes.
Okay.
And there is no nation without a problem.
Yes.
So Cameroonians should accept and stand up to the truth of its creed.
Yes.
And apply the truth, because it is only the truth that is going to set this nation free.
Amen.
It's only the truth that will set this nation free. Thank you, gentlemen, for being there for today's edition of the program.
Before I give back the microphone, let's say that the president has understood this problem very well, and there's going to be dialogue. He's interested in reconciliation and unity in the nation. So let's be hopeful and continue to work on this program.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all we prepared for today's edition of the program. Up next, we'll have the news in the English language with our staff lady, Cynthia Nguemo. Until we meet again tomorrow for another topic, interesting one, of course. Have a blessed evening and goodbye.
Ce soir,
نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
ce mardi,
Good evening and and thanks for joining us on this edition of the news, which is the first for the week, but equally for the month of May 2021. Thanks for joining us. I am Cynthia Ngwemo. We begin the news right away with a crisis situation in the west region of Cameroon, notably in Fumbot, Nun Division, where the populations have angrily reacted to the death of one of theirs in prison. They expressed anger by taking to the streets in protest, attacking the said prison and setting the court of first instance of Fumbot ablaze. The deceased is said to have been detained for unlawfully selling medications, and while in prison he fell seriously ill but could not be taken to the hospital for treatment because the Attorney General denied him permission, thus his death while in jail. This led the population of Fumbot into fury as they stormed the prison and surrounded the court of first instance, demanding the dismissal of the Attorney General, who was nowhere to be found, just like other court authorities, so they set the court on fire. It is reported that the angry mob also seized the corpse of the deceased man and exposed it out in the streets, notably at the area known as Carrefour Makiza. This caused the complete blockade of the Fumbot-Bafoussam highway. After being informed about the situation, the King of Bamoun, His Majesty Ibrahim Bombon Joya, as well as other traditional authorities of the Nun Division, called for calm and a quick return to normal. You shall get updates about this situation in our subsequent editions of the news on DBS television. This takes us to other stories of this newscast as Cameroon joins the international community to celebrate World Press Freedom Day this 3rd of May 2021. It is a day in which men and women of the press are called upon to brainstorm on information as a public good. Mange Venasus in the following report looks at the challenges that these men and women of the press go through on a daily basis in the exercise of their profession. Mange Venasus.
Information as a public good is the center of reflection for media men and women as they commemorate World Press Freedom Day, May 3rd, 2021. Involved in a sector whose output is non-excludable, these press men and women are bound to work on the credibility of the information which from its character is a public good, coming at a time when information is evolving at the speed of light and from diverse and at times conflicting sources. Theirs is an uphill task to split between what is ought to be consumed by the society and that which should not. It is this uphill task that has led to many having their freedom curtailed, either by authorities or some ill-intentioned individuals. Commemorating World Press Freedom Day is speaking in a loud voice that these men and women of the media be given the opportunity they need so as to gather and treat information which is a public good. Journalists have had and are still going through difficulties to get credible information from credible sources. Others see them as their enemies because they come in to uncover the skeletons in their cupboards. Little do they know that a well-informed journalist is well placed to give fact and only the fact. Like they say, they will only cover the event or issue. Considered the fourth pillar of democracy, the press requires a degree of freedom. As if this were their only predicament, working conditions they go through to deliver what others only sit to criticize may at times be inhumane, but they still do it, sacrificing their own time, if not for anything, but for the love of the profession. It was in 1993 that the United Nations General Assembly declared every 3rd of May as World Press Freedom Day, as advocated primarily by African journalists. Unfortunately, about 20 years after, the absence of press freedom still finds its full existence within the continent where press men and women are not independent to carry out their profession. One thing that remains glaring is that a nation misinformed is heading for ruins.
As it is often said, knowledge is power. Now we move on to another globally commemorated day, as the 135th edition of International Labour Day has been celebrated worldwide in a COVID-19 context that was particularly on the 1st of May 2021. However, the problems of workers in Cameroon still remain far from being solved. It was to address the problems that some workers of the private sector, also members of Cameroon's Workers' Unions Confederation, gathered on May 1. The meeting shed light on the strength of workers' unions to fight against unlawful dismissals and forced retirement, especially with regards to the poor treatment received by some employees who served as scapegoats after the outbreak of coronavirus in Cameroon. Let's now listen to an excerpt of Antoinette Tangono, who is a member of the Trade Unionist Confederation of Cameroon. She emphasizes on the importance and need for workers' rights in Cameroon to be respected and protected. Let's listen.
All Confederation has been here in Douala to be together to address our expectation to the government. The most expectation we want that workplace must be safe. Workers must be allowed to take care from their family, to take care for their family, as I say. But what we are saying today is not good. Worker health is not a priority in enterprise, in workplace. So we are expecting that government take his responsibility. Even employee take also their responsibility. But when a worker is not well, what can you expect that this worker can do in enterprise? So I think that this COVID pandemic is here to remind us that it is very important that worker must be healthy.
Over in the far north region of Cameroon, ex-fighters of Boko Haram, who are now inmates of the DDR Center in Mora, have gladly received the national coordinator of the National Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Commission, Fai Yengo Francis. Accompanied by the governor of the region, Mijiawa Bakari, he held a meeting with the repentance fighters and administrators of the DDR Center, as well as with local and religious authorities, so as to address some key issues plaguing the center. The national coordinator used the opportunity to call on the DDR inmates to practice patience when faced with those challenges. He as well reminded everyone of the accomplishments of the center and the role that every citizen has to play to ensure the success of their mission. Here is Fai Yengo Francis in the following excerpt.
We are not at the same level of information as far as the DDR process is concerned. First of all, we profited to tell them that it's a process. It takes time. It has a cost. And the target, our ex-associates, we have to call on them to be patient so that they can enjoy this process, they can accompany it because it is for them. In addition to this, we came to have a normal reaction to see how our center is functioning. And I'm pleased to inform you that the center is functioning well. I will also profit to give them some drugs and to give them that beautiful bus which you are seeing over there. The quest for peace is for everybody. The success of the process is for everybody. And if any person along the chain doesn't do his or her own responsibility, the process will not be good.
Young Cameroonians in the Kadey division, that is in the east region of Cameroon, have received first-hand information on how to build a profession from agriculture, notably through rural entrepreneurship. A rural entrepreneurship forum was held in Baturi to encourage value chain products like fish and corn in the presence of Cameroon's Minister of Mines and Technological Development, Gabriel Dodondoke, the governor of the region, and the elite of the East who came up with the initiative. For 2 days, hundreds of youths received knowledge to encourage them into creating jobs and projects in agriculture. The Minister of Mines used the occasion to invite other young Cameroonians into agricultural innovations while reminding them of the resources put in their disposal by the government. Here is an excerpt of his, gotten for us by our East Regional correspondent, Hugues Pascal Chofo. Let's listen.
I can say that I have been satisfied with all what has been done here since yesterday by the different administrations, sectorial administrations, to explain to our young brothers and sisters what the agriculture can bring to them as revenue and how they can organize themselves, they can build their future in the jobs of rural entrepreneurs. I had the occasion to explain to them what is the role of my ministry after the production to transform and make and grow the value added of the products that they can have after the, let's say, the activities of maize and fish.
Let's now round up the news with information out of Cameroon. In Chad, the military junta has named a new transitional government in which the president, Mahamat Idriss Déby, has appointed, or rather created, a new national reconciliation ministry, which is to be headed by an ex-rebel chief. In Somalia, the president, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, has opened talks to hold elections in the country. There are fears of deadly violence in the future as a result of this. Rogeatu Buba gives us details of the stories.
The military council that took power in Chad last month after the death of veteran leader Idriss Déby has named a transitional government. Déby's 37-year-old son Mohamed named a government comprising 40 ministers and deputy ministers and created a new national reconciliation ministry. The new ministry is to be headed by a former rebel chief who became a diplomatic advisor to the presidency in 2019. Chad has remained tense since Déby's death, with the military saying that 6 people were killed last week during demonstrations in the capital, N'Djamena. A local aid group has put the death toll at 9. More than 650 people were arrested during the protest, which has been banned by the authorities. The majority of ministers in the new government held positions under Déby. Somalia's president, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, has reopened talks to hold elections as soon as possible, a move welcomed by the opposition and raising fears of further deadly violence. In a short speech to the members of parliament broadcast on television, the president called for a negotiated solution to the ongoing political crisis, abandoning the 2-year extension of his presidential term adopted on April 12. Somalia, a country weakened by decades of civil war and insurgency, is currently experiencing one of its worst political crises in recent years. The extension of the presidential term on April 12 triggered the anger of the opposition to the point of degenerating into armed clashes between government forces and pro-opposition, leaving 3 dead. The president placed himself within the framework of an agreement reached on 17 September between the federal government and 15 semi-autonomous states of the country as requested by his opponents and several partner countries.
We have come to the end of the news for today, the 3rd of May 2021, from us here at DBS Television. Thanks for letting us inform you. We do hope to see you when we return tomorrow, same time, still on DBS. For now, good night.
Monday, the 3rd of May 2021, our journey through the papers begins with Cameroon Tribune in Politics, looking at the first 100 days in office of regional councillors. 3 months, a week and few days after the installation of these pioneer regional councillors, the paper on page 11 notes that their setting up and their first contact with their partners is counted as their first act, while their budgets and resources are still highly awaited. On page 18 to page 19 about the media, we read that information credibility is a key concern as the media in Cameroon joined their peers across the globe to commemorate World Press Freedom Day, with news sources diversifying each day. The paper says the challenge remains authenticating multiple news resources. The situation is at the center of activities this May 3rd, 2021. Cameroon Insider newspaper on page 8 to page 9 in a reflective mode tells us that COVID-19 is reshaping work habit. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, several structures have been weaving new work habits to circumvent the effect of the disease. Even the Prime Minister, as the paper tells us, now works regularly by